Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and today I have the opportunity to work on an oldie but a goodie. This one is a Finor. It's a USA made reel from the 1960s. It's the Finor 12-20 Lite. It's a lever drag reel in a classic styling. That doesn't work. So we're in mid-gear here, and you get this grind, kind of like a duck call or whatever. But it's not turning the reel. No matter what you do, tighten it down. You just don't get the spool turning. And tighten it all the way down as far as you can tighten it down, and you lock up. So it's kind of an odd thing, but we're going to take this apart. We'll try and figure out why this reel has failed, and hopefully, more importantly, we'll be able to get this reel fishing again. So we're going to kind of fly by the seat of our pants on this one because I don't know this reel, but we're all going to learn together, I think, as we go do this. So we're going to start by removing the exterior parts, and as I do that, I want to encourage everybody to subscribe to the channel if we haven't subscribed to the channel already, and if you have, thank you very much. I appreciate your support, and the channel kind of works on everything, right? It works on the old school reels like this one. It works on ocean reels, freshwater reels, lightweight reels, heavy duty reels, and everything in between, all kinds of fishing reels. And what we try to do is to teach you how to do it yourself. Now, I can certainly repair them, and you're really watching me look over my shoulder while I do this, but you know, we're all visual learners, and that's one way to transfer the skills. Well, lever drags are interesting reels. They're rather simple in design, and Finor had a patent on what they called the friction-driven reel, and that patent was applied for in 1960 and was approved in 1964. And well, we're going to find out what's going on with this one, and hopefully we'll be able to get this one fishing again. It's a very odd sound of something that's not engaging. So we remove the handle. Now we're going to remove the adjuster, and when I take those pieces and parts off, I put them into a parts tray, and that parts tray is a central repository for everything that comes off so that I know where it is when it's time to put it back on. Again, I don't have the schematic for this reel, so it's kind of play along, and when you do that kind of thing, there's nothing wrong with it, but one of the best things that I can suggest to you if you're considering doing this is take pictures. Now, I'm taking pictures with a video camera. You don't have to do that, but use your cell phone, use a digital camera, use a Polaroid, use a traditional camera, whatever works for you. But when you do that, take pictures at critical junctions so that, well, when it comes time to reinstall, you can do that properly. So, for example, we know that we just took the ring off. Got a lot of stuff in here. Just old greases and the light dirt, which, among other things, is an indication that this reel, even though it's nice and shiny on the outside, this reel hasn't been serviced in a very long time, because anybody servicing the reel would have done exactly what I'm doing here and taken a moment to clean off the dirt and debris behind there. We've got a little assembly here that you need to pay attention to. This is your lever drag ramp and assembly. This one goes first, this goes second. And that's very easy to overlook, and quite honestly, if you just had turned the reel over, you would have knocked that off, and well, you probably would have had a problem in terms of, okay, where did this come from now? But in this case, fortunately, we were able to recognize that ahead of schedule. But take the pictures. Also, you'll notice that, well, these two screw holes here were the outer ring that also connects the case. Then we have two rounded head screws, and then we have a flat head screw. So it's always good to note where in the cycle these things belong. Okay, well, let's see if these come out easily. If they don't, we're going to spray these down to get some penetrating oil on them. But this one seems to be moving well, and that's a very small screw. Well, we know that one's going to come up top because it's the flathead screw, but we also want to pay attention here about the two rounded ones. And I'm going to put those into my parts tray, but I'm going to put them together because I want to make sure that these screws are all the same size. If one is longer than the other, I want to note where that long screw goes. In this case, they're both the same. Well, there's two more, and they still may be attaching the side plate. Well, they are. So let's go ahead and take them out. Sometimes they're just holding a bridge structure or something. And if they're holding something internal but not on the ring, well, then you don't have to remove them. In this case, it looks like something's turning freely in there. And I'm kind of curious what these things are. Let's see if that helps with the removal of this case. I was thinking if I was able to remove the part, and this has got a lot of salt buildup in it, so that could be a potential cause for it. And this one's just spinning in place. So I think what we want to do here is we want to go ahead and spray this whole rim, and we'll come back to it in a moment or two. Just let that penetrating oil sit in there and kind of do what it can do. Well, it's been a couple of minutes, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a utility knife. Oh, it looks like I just hit something and it's starting to move. Let's see what we can get out of this now. There we go. So it's off. And I think one of the answers was that, well, we got something going on here. That's probably what that click, 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 clack was. We've got a totally bent up and destroyed, to some extent, anti-reverse dog. That's probably what the one issue was. We've got an incredible amount of dirt and debris in here, but that can all be cleaned away. I'm interested to find out what that side plate screw was, because it didn't need to come out. So we'll get that other one back in as quick as we can. And we should be able to remove the spool here to deal with the back side. Well, it's obvious that even though they did a beautiful job of cleaning the case, that this reel hasn't been serviced in a very, very long time. Let's use a paper towel here, clean up as much of this as we can. And all of that stuff sort of wipes free. Yeah, we got a clean case now. Didn't take much. More importantly, we're a little bit concerned now about that dog. Let's take the pressure plate off. This is the other dog. This is your main gear. Let's pull that out. Very simple design. And these two screws happen to be holding the dog post in place. So we're going to just go right ahead now. Put that other screw back in, because we know where it belongs. We know that it doesn't have anything to do with the case attachment, and we know, more importantly, that we've got to clean that up a little bit. All right, I have a pattern here now. That's how it goes. It's a traditional fork. I don't know what happened on this, but we're going to try to see if there isn't any way to straighten this out, because I am certain we can't get another one of these. So let's take our micro pliers, and then this one got ground in here. See if we can flip this down. Maybe pull it. Trying to figure out how that wing goes. We're flush on the back, which kind of says that this should pull down like an Air Force wing or something. There we go. Even though it's not perfect, it's not too bad. Given that they have two of them, it's a little bit redundant. So I think we should be okay. Now, one of the problems is this belongs up higher. That's where this pattern is helping. Well, we're just going to have to play around with this for a moment. So I'm going to shut the camera off. You don't need to see me wiggle and wobble. Okay, I've been playing around with it for 7 minutes or so. But I'll challenge you to tell me which one the correct one is. Not bad, huh? So what did I do? I used my pliers to kind of reset this, and I've also used a little hammer to tap down and square that up, And we've got these matched together now. There will be a little bit of separation needed, but I wanted to overcompensate first, and then we'll get the separation later. All right, well, I think we identified the problem. We've identified that the reel hasn't been serviced in forever, even though it's pretty outside. So let's clean it up, give it the service it needs, and then I'm pretty comfortable in thinking that we're going to get this one back fishing again. The hardened grease is coming off with the penetrating oil. All good. Let's test that bearing. Oh, that bearing runs fine. I oil bearings, I don't grease them, so I'm just going to flood that bearing. I do notice that there's a little bit of grease behind there, so let's get that out while we're at it. That'll spin beautifully. And then let's come over to our side plate here. This is your pressure plate. Very straightforward, pretty simple design on this one. I'm not sure. I think that one, if it's stuck in the case, that's the way it's going to be. It doesn't seem to have play. It may actually be an integral part of that. Same thing here. Let's just clean up in aisle 7 here. Let's get all the greases off the pressure plate. We have a bearing inside here, so it's a well-made piece. Long one. I want to get my oiler. Use fishing reel oil when you're oiling your reel. Use fishing reel grease when you're greasing your reel, and you won't have any problems. If you use a substitute, if you use a household grease or oil, if you use an automotive grease or oil, it will be suboptimal performance. Can you do it? It's been done. Have I seen some real tragedies because of it? I have. But overall, that's your choice. But fishing reel greases and oils are inexpensive, and just go out and get yourself a small container of it when you're doing your reel service, and you won't have to take that risk. We're going to get a good amount of grease onto the core shaft and onto the main gear. And we can just simply reinsert this to the channel, and we'll be good to go with that. That turns nice and easily. Next up then is going to be to insert your pinion gear and get your anti-reverse set back together again. And now on our anti-reverses, you need to understand how these things work. They're pinch driven. Probably should have worked this. This is the original. Probably need to tighten that up just a little bit. So all I'm doing is taking a non-marring hammer, finding a flat spot. You can use an anvil or whatever, and that will tighten up the gap here. And then you need to look at the beak for your anti-reverse, because the beak is going to match up this way when it closes down. Find that and just slide it over the mechanism. Just like that. That's how your anti-reverse dog will fit. But we got one more of these, and they look like they're at 180-degree intersections. One's going to go high, one's going to go low. So here's the one that we kind of refixed as best we could. Go ahead and put that one on. Now this one will probably run suboptimally because there is a little bit of a movement in that clamp, but again, maybe suboptimal is better than not running at all. So this is the one that was repaired. We want to take this now and load that so that you have one over each post, and I missed by a click. So we'll back this one up 1 or 2, and you just have to play with it until you get it right. And again, I don't have the schematic or that to tell me I have it right or wrong. It says on instinct, but I know enough about how these things operate to say that we're going to be pretty close here. Okay, so I just reset this now. I think we're ready to go. You don't want to rotate the reel at this point because the case for the reel is going to hold those dogs from popping all the way out. So just be careful with that. Last thing I want to do, I got a lot of grease on that pressure plate as the result of kind of playing around with that thing, so just get that clean. All right, let's go service the spool. Now, one of the things you'll notice is we're pretty worn up here. And I'm not sure, this appears to be a cork washer. Yeah, it's a cork washer, and it's in there pretty tight. We're not certain of the strength of this, but it's not torn or cracked in any way. So I'm going to use a wire brush to clean the old grease off. That'll restore it. It'll take all of the grease that's been lodged in the channels of the cork, and it'll pull it out. Probably should put a towel on my desk here. It'll make that cork look like new and work like new too. It's just old grease that's clogging the pores of this anti-reverse, or of the drag washer. So just give it a good, and again, this is a brass bristle brush, but you can see it looks like a new gear or a new drag washer right now. It's going to perform like one. I have no doubt about that. So just take your time. You'll see where you have some heavy spots, and it'll clean right up. There you go. I like that a lot. All right, let's go service the rest of the reel then. We have a spring that goes next. The axle shaft should pull out. We have a washer, a bearing on this side. We're going to oil. We have a couple of washers and should have a bearing on this side. Just testing it, it turns fine. Clean up the excess grease and the like on the click side. Oil the bearing. Remember which side is which. Remember we had a couple of tension washers in there, so let's get those on. Put that axle shaft through. Put our spring back on. And now we have just a simple hole. Sometimes on these reels you're going to find that there's a crossbar or a T that goes back there. In this case, it's just a single mounting hole to accept that stud. Makes that easy. And now what we can do is we can kind of put the rest of this to the test. Make sure that your anti-reverse is in. It's kind of easy. You've got your main gear and a recess here, so you should be pretty good in terms of lining that up. Just like that. Let's bring that down. And now what we want to find is those screws that we put into our case. And let's start with the one that's the flat screw, because we know where that one goes. That one goes on the top of the reel, right there. So this reel was made in the 60s. It doesn't have metrics. That one nut there is a 5/8, I believe, SAE US. It's before metrics kind of became the go-to standard in fishing reels. But if you're working on one and you're trying to figure out why your wrenches aren't fitting quite right, that would be it. I can't wait to see. I'm assuming that everything we did here is going to say this one's going to work fine. All right, we want to take a rounded one from below. Well, if you have any questions on this reel or any reel in particular, if there's something that you're curious about in terms of lever drags and how they work, leave that in the comment section. I will try to answer those questions for you. Maybe you're working on a reel that has nothing to do with this and you're stuck and you just can't figure out how to get that reel to work again. Well, if you leave that in the comment section, I'll try and answer that for you too. There is a phone number and a business card that follows, but I have to be honest with you, with the way that I'm working in the shop and everything, it's just probably the least efficient way to contact me. All right, let's get that trim ring back on. It's going to handle the lever. So my guess here on why it wasn't turning the reel was that anti-reverse, however it got jammed up. And when it got jammed up, it probably was pushing the gear out of the way. That's why you were probably hearing the click that was going on. And it was not allowing the pinion gear to seat properly. Well, that's all speculation, and who knows if it's right or wrong. The only way we're going to find out is when we give this thing a test, when we're done. So we're going to put the 2 screws back in. And this may or may not be correct because, well, that little lever that we have there, that's going to be the adjuster, it's got a little roller over it. And sometimes that roller gets in the way and you have to kind of put the roller on before you put the tie downs here. Okay, so I've reinstalled the trim ring now. Notice you got those little holes in there, which are going to be holdfasts. And you're probably wondering what holds it. Well, there's a little ball bearing that sits in a little cavity here. And please be careful when you do this. When you take the reel apart, you may lose that ball. It's just going to simply fall out most of the time. And I say most of the time, I'm assuming this is the first time I've worked on this reel. That's a ball bearing. Be careful as you go. All right, let's take this then. We have our little ramp for the trip ramp, and that needs to nest inside the carrier. That's going to move the spool in. As you turn this ramp, that's going to go up. It's going to pull the spool in to connect with the drag washer. And we had a little trim ring went on. Watch that ball bearing. You should be all the way over here. You want to set this in neutral or free spool. And you need to kind of be careful as you do this because of some of the things we just said here about that thing. And I think what I want to do is go this way. And we should be there, something like that. All right. Next up then is the adjuster. This is the preset adjuster. When you go to preset this reel, you need to make sure that you're doing it in the off position, which is over here. Let's find that handle. Let's see if this reel has a second chance. I'm thinking it does. We identified it. I think we did enough of a repair on that anti-reverse dog. Because there's 2 of them, I'm not as concerned as if there was one. I'm noticing here, I probably should have. Looks like there's a tie down here, a little Allen key, but it doesn't appear to be the issue. Yeah, there's a little Allen key here. I guess we probably could have removed that. Okay, it's time for a test. I took the glove off. I tried this test before. It works great, but you couldn't see it because all the gold is blending in. So I just put a little green piece of tape on there to show you in free spool how nice and easily this is turning. So we've got the free spool back. We didn't have that before. Now let's move from free spool into first strike. We've got a nice turning reel. Oh, that's tightened down already. We could actually loosen this back a little bit. Let's go for max drag. And the one thing we don't have is the click, 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 and no drive. So that was it. It was a broken anti-reverse dog. It somehow got meshed out of it. And I have no idea how that happened. I know it probably wasn't from anybody opening up the reel because, well, that reel hadn't seen service in some time. Let's do one more thing. Test the anti-reverse. Yep, it's doing exactly what it should be doing. And as we mentioned, it's a fail-safe. It's a second one. So it should partner up with the other one now and just be fine and shouldn't break again. We'll see. I know the fellow that owns the reel. I'll tell him if it happens again. We'll go with a single anti-reverse dog because you won't find a replacement for it. So that's it. That's the Finor Lite. It's the 1220. It's an interesting little reel that's ready to go fishing again. I hope you've enjoyed that. To our first responders and essential personnel, thank you for everything it is that you do to keep us safe. To everyone, please enjoy fishing. Take a friend. Service up your tackle before the spring season starts to get too close. And stay healthy, stay well, and stay watching. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.